What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of interAXEtion. And on this episode of interAXEtion, we're going to be taking your questions about superimposition, learning the fretboard on a 7 or 8 string, and then playing Metallica riffs. What's going on, guys? It is really hot here, and these lights are hot. And I know here in San Diego, we have zero right to complain about weather. But man, we are going through a heat wave, and my house is hot. Trying to stay cool, but you guys probably don't care about that. So let's jump into some questions. I know the importance of knowing where all the notes are on the fretboard, but find myself having a hard time quickly figuring out where the notes are when I'm playing in different tunings, especially since I bought an 8 string. I see myself a pretty skilled guitar player, and I understand a decent amount of music theory. So my question would be, any tips on how to figure out the notes, on how to switch between a drop A on a 7 string or F sharp standard or a drop D tuning on an 8 string? Alright, so that's a really good question, and basically it boils down to fretboard knowledge, right? Your vision of the fretboard. And there's a couple of things I want to say about this. If you play in a drop C or a drop B tuning, and you already know the notes on the guitar, I would just reference the fretboard as if you were in standard tuning, right? And then if you're communicating or figuring out another part on an instrument, then figure out what pitch you're playing by dropping it down a minor third or a fourth or something like that. Because when you read, even in the classical world, if you're playing a classical guitar piece and the guitar is detuned, like Koyunbaba, one of my favorite classical guitar pieces ever, and it's in like a crazy open C tuning, really low, and it sounds fantastic. Go check it out if you can. But it's notated as if it was written in standard, because you're not going to relearn your music staff, right? So that makes it difficult to figure out notes. So that's just the approach I always take, and I've always taken that way. So I would try to do it in that sense. And as far as, you know, on a 7 string or an 8 string, if you're on a 7 string and drop A, use all the chords you know on the 5th string with a 5th string root, like 5th string bar chords or anything like that, and just play those chords, but just skip the A string down to the low A string or the 7 string in that case, and try to play the same chords or voicings of them, so that'll help in that sense. And also, if you're playing like an 8 string or a 7 string in standard tuning, take 1 octave chord shapes, shell voicings. You know, I have a couple lessons on those here that I've talked about, and that's a great way to learn the lower strings. I mean, if you're comfortable with the 2nd string, B, well, you should know the notes on the B string. Obviously, on an A string, the F sharp, you know, kind of throws, right, a wrench in the whole thing, because we don't have an F sharp string unless we're playing in lute tunings, so we're just not used to that. So that's what I would recommend, playing simple bar chords, 4 string chords, 1 octave scales, and finding the octave off of the E string and then dropping down. Right, so you can play the same chord on your 6th string and then drop down and play it a whole step lower on the 8th string, and try to accompany it that way. It's this way you can kind of tell yourself, oh, I'm playing a G chord, right? But now I just drop it down an octave, and that seems to work. That's what's always worked well for me, and you can kind of make those connections like that. Okay, so good luck. Really great question. I have a question about superimposition. So I recently discovered that you can superimpose a C major arpeggio over an E minor chord in the E Aeolian mode that apply to the concept in other 6 modes, and they sound good. Are there any other examples of how to superimpose with that and sound good? Maybe other modes and over other chords. This is a really great concept. First of all, it's a really good question, and it's good to learn other chords and how chords are related, and it'll help you learn the notes of chords if you don't know them already. Alright, you'll see this technique a lot in the jazz world. They call superimposition, right? So if whatever chord, say you're playing over a major chord or a major 7 chord, right? And in this case, I'll use your example, C. You can play an E minor chord over that, right? And the trick is basically you go to the 3rd of any chord and you play the triad from that point up, right? So if I'm on a C chord, or C major 7 chord, which is C, E, G, and B, right? If I go to the E, the 3rd of that chord, and play a minor 7 chord, I get E, G, B, D. Right? So if I put all those notes together, it's just a C major 9 chord. So not only melodically are you not just playing the root chord, right? So it's going to sound interesting in that, but you're also hitting some upper extensions of those chords. And that's a really great trick. My buddy Jens just did a lesson, I'll link it down below, a triad lesson over a very common jazz progression. right? I think it was 3-2-5-6 progression, right? And it's basically that same concept. You are superimposing triads from the third of that chord. All right, it's a really great way to kind of change the harmony a little bit and hit those upper extensions because of that. So I would check into that, and I'll link that his lesson, Jen's lesson, down below, and then I'll probably do some lessons on that, maybe incorporate it into a more rock sense, right? Cool, great question. And then finally, this isn't really a question, but I've seen these all over in the comments section. I recently made a Metallica video, right? 5 Metallica riffs that'll improve your down picking. And there seems to be a common thing. I played some of the riffs slightly off, right? Creeping Death, I forgot to put the opens on the F sharp chord, and that's just a weird subconscious block. It's like my whole life I've always just played it and go, oh, there should be opens there. I don't know why I have this mental block when it comes to that. And I think I switched up the last 2 notes in Seek and Destroy. Instead of like 7-6, I played 6-7, and that was weird. I'm gonna blame the Mandela effect on that one, because I swear it's always been 6-7 my entire life, even like the tab books and everything like that, and I thought it was a great variation, and the riff goes up, and I don't know. But you guys say it's 6-7, and I believe you, you know? I didn't like relearn any of these riffs. I played them out of sheer memory from years ago, so that's cool. But my point about this is, and I see this a lot, I saw it in a lot of my Adam Jones and the Tool videos that I did. There's a lot of comments where if player X plays it like this and you play it like that, you're playing it wrong. And the example I want to talk about is the Master of Puppets. James Hetfield plays it all on the low string from the 12th fret, a nice descending chromatic line. And I've never played it that way. You know, when I learn these tracks, I learn them by my ear, right? I didn't have YouTube when I first learned how to play the guitar. You know, I wasn't looking at concert footage. I put the CD in and I tried to figure it out. And I learned it by ear. So all the notes are correct, all the pitches are correct. So the only way something is wrong is if your notes are wrong. All right, I'm not a believer in the fact that you have to replicate exactly how the guitar player plays it. I just don't believe in that. You know, everybody's gear is going to sound different. Everybody plays guitar different. So if somebody plays a lick a certain way and you can play it better or make it your own on a different set of strings, you're not wrong. You know, express yourself in that way. So, you know, the way I look at it is, when you look through like Metallica riffs, especially from in that era, Hetfield really never played the 12th fret. But he always played the open E5 chord on the 5th string, right? The low E open and then 7 and the 9, that power chord. He played that a lot. So for me, it made sense to play it there, because I personally think it sounds better than playing it on the 12th fret, because you get the low E and then you get the octave and the power chord rather than just the octave power chord, and then you chug down. So, and I saw that a lot in like Jones, where, oh, Jones would play it on this string, or this, you know, right? A melody on this string and you play on that string, so you're wrong. And again, I just don't believe in that, right? Different strings are going to have different timbres because of the thickness. Everybody's gear is going to sound different. So if you can nail a part on a different area of the fretboard, then rock it. You know, in jazz and blues, you're supposed to do that. You learn people's licks, and then you're supposed to learn them on other string sets, because it brings fretboard awareness and how to play things differently and how to approach things differently. So that's just, you know, from where I come from. So I don't necessarily agree with you that Puppets is wrong because I didn't play it all on the low string. Now the other ones, I admit that the Mandela effect was strong with Seek and Destroy. Strange, but yeah, Puppets, the pitches are there. I don't care where you play it. I don't care where Hetfield plays it. Pitches are right. If I put it on the album, it's gonna sound spot on. So I'm gonna rock it. You know, cool, man. So I love the questions that are coming in. Keep them coming. Leave them down below. I answer a lot of them. People answer a lot of them, and then hopefully we can talk about some of them on camera. So as always, let me know what you come up with, and until then, I'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.